This is me. This is my beloved wife, Sylvia. This is Sylvia's idea of sailing. This is my dream of sailing and my hope of circumnavigating the globe as a retirement project in 2029. This is Sylvia's reaction to that idea. I am on a 6-year quest to convince Sylvia that a circumnavigation is a wonderful adventure, but the clock is ticking, so join me as I search for the perfect yacht that Sylvia will love, and get all your ladies to subscribe and cheer Sylvia on in the comments. Welcome back to Naval Gazing at Camp David. This week's guest yacht is from the prettiest of the big three, in my opinion, and it's the second smallest of their line. It's the Fountaine Pajot Astrea 42. Today, we're going to review its specifications, pricing, and layout against 3 similar new vessels, do a full tour asking, as always, what would Sylvia say? Naval gaze at an innovation and or adjustment that might make life aboard just a little bit easier. Have a look at the used market for 3 to 5-year-old comparables, and finally, give it a Dave score and measure it against all the other yachts we've looked at so far. All this fun will be sandwiched between a wine pairing from the same region as the guest yacht and a look at a favorite sample of art from the same region. Yachts, waves, wine, and art. What a civilized way to spend 30 minutes. Let's get going. Starting high above Vancouver, Canada, we fly west across the Pacific to Vietnam, the home of last week's future yacht and Seawind Catamaran. From here, we continue west around the globe to the Fountaine Pajot yards on the west coast of France. For this week's wine pairing, we head south down the coast to Domaines Barons De Rothschild and their Legende Medoc Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot 2017. The Lafite Rothschild family has been producing wine in Bordeaux since 1868. For 6 generations, they got to know this beautiful landscape and understand the unique traits of the vines from each appellation. 3 decades ago, the family was inspired to create a new wine series where each wine would be the epitome of the appellation it came from. Their motivation was simple: to ensure wine lovers everywhere could dive into Bordeaux and taste the originality of each appellation. And so, Les Legendes R range was born. The wines in the collection are made under the supervision of oenologist Diane Flamand, with the same care and attention to detail as is applied to the Grand Vins. The Pollack and Merdoc wines are produced from DBR owns vineyards and from neighboring vineyards. For Bordeaux appellations, the technical team selects the terroirs and supervises the vinification of the grapes from partner suppliers. The rich patchwork of Chateau in the Merdoc produces ruby-colored, well-rounded wines that are a fine accompaniment to many dishes. The collection's Medoc benefits from the same care as Grand Vin: rigorous selection, extreme precision in the winery, and meticulous specifications, reduced yields, impeccable ripeness and purity of the fruit, and traditional maturing. The star of the Medoc Cabernet Sauvignon is given excellent expression and can be appreciated for its natural characteristics by lovers of Bordeaux wines. Nice, deep, ruby red color, expressive, complex nose offering a pleasant aromatic diversity, combining scents of leather and ripe fruit with subtle oaky notes. Elegant and well balanced on the palate with silky tannins, offering a long, spicy finish. It's a blend of 55% Cabernet Sauvignon and 45% Merlot. Oh, lovely. Let's go have a look at that boat. Having a look at the lines of this boat, you know, I love the Fountaine Pajot line. As far as the production vessels go, to me, it's one of the most attractive. Look at the purposeful vertical bows, quite a thin entry, and always a beautiful mid-level helm, which I really like, keeping you in contact with the folks in the sun pad as well as the folks in the cockpit and the saloon. They have wide open doors that enter into the saloon and really create a sense of continuous space. Of course, it's always the same level. And the boat itself just looks aggressive as well as elegant. I think they've done a tremendous job. Moving into the new comparables, we're looking at the ORC 42, the Astrea 42, the Lagoon 42, and the XS 11. Here we can see the Astrea has 106 square meter upwind sail area, which is actually the highest of all four, including the ORC 42. As we move onto the cabin top, there is no denying that ORC 42 and its pin needle hulls. But, for a production boat, the Astrea 42 really does very nicely. It has one of the largest trampolines of the group. The XS 11 has exceeded it, but it has a beautiful front cockpit. And it has a very nice sun lounge up on the upper deck. And again, that lovely split helm, which I really do like. The Lagoon, obviously the widest and thickest of the bunch, and we'll probably see that in the performance numbers when we get there. Heading down into the actual saloon itself, you can see that the Astrea 42 is absolutely no slouch, with what looks to be by far the largest square footage of living space among the four. The layout is convenient and comfortable and extremely attractive. As we head down into the actual cabins themselves, you can see the Astrea hulls appear to be a little slimmer than both the XS and the Lagoon. Of course, nothing compares with the ORC 42, but the Astrea manages to give you a really nice three-sided walk-around access to the owner's suite and an extremely nice head. The shower treatment that they've done there just creates a massive space that you just don't normally see in a vessel of this size. Moving on to the numbers themselves right now, we're looking at the top line pricing. ORC's at $520, the Fountaine Pajot at $466. Lagoon 42 is the most cost-effective at $426 base. Now, the XS 11 is the lowest at $326, but it is a much smaller vessel as well. Bear in mind that these prices are base, assuming FOB factory, and they're only an indicator because logistics and material costs and all of those things are turning prices on their head. Looking at the overall length, the ORC is the longest at 46.1. The Lagoon 42 is at 42 exactly. The Fountaine Pajot is at 41.3. And the XS 11 at 37. Now, it should be noted that actual length on the waterline is much closer. So the ORC is 42.8. The Fountaine Pajot is longer than the Lagoon at 41.3 and the Lagoon at 41. Draft, the Lagoon and the Fountaine Pajot are tied at the lowest for 1.25. And displacement, of course, the ORC is at a very svelte 5.8 ton. The Fountaine Pajot, not terrible bad at 11.5, with the Lagoon at 12.1. Of course, the XS 11, they've put that on a diet and they've taken it down to 9 ton, which is pretty good, even considering it's shorter. Looking at upwind sail area, as we noted earlier, the Fountaine Pajot leads at 106. With the Lagoon far behind at 90. The actual then engine size, the Lagoon is the highest base at 45 horsepower, the Fountain at 30. Fuel tankage, the Fountaine Pajot leads the pack at 470 for fuel and 700 for water, followed by the XS at 400 and 300 respectively. Heading now to hull construction. The ORC, of course, leads the pack with infusion with a fiberglass and vinyl ester resin sandwich on a PVC foam core, whether for the hull, deck, or bulkheads. Carbon reinforcement beams reinforce the rigidity. The Fountaine Pajot is a PVC foam core sandwich with vacuum laminated polyester outer skins and a gel coat to protect the outside. The infused hulls employ balsa core on the top side, to just below the waterline. The injected decks are cored with foam. So for some reason, we're still using balsa in any part of this vessel. The battery bank is the highest that we could, for the data that we could find. And looking at the actual performance indicators, so sail area to displacement, you've got the Fountaine Pajot with a respectable 21.11 versus the XS at 1809 and the Lagoon at 1735. Of course, the ORC is ripping it with 31.67. Looking at the displacement to hull length or heaviness, you've got, of course, the ORC leading. This is where it's like golf, lowest score wins at 72.88. And followed there by the Fountaine Pajot at 169.7. The other two, you've got the Lagoon 42 at 172.82 and the XS at 185.37. So the Fountaine Pajot is not an ultralight, but it is a light. The Bruce number, again on the ORC, we're looking at 1.41, with the Fountaine Pajot next at 1.15, the XS at 1.07, and the Lagoon at 1.04. Hopping aboard, what would Sylvia say? You're talking about a 42 here, and they've got a beautiful hydraulic tender lift. I think it's one of the only ones of that size that actually offers it, and I absolutely love it. I know it's heavy, but it's a weight that I'd be willing to sacrifice. Nice windows into the aft cabins, you can see, and a beautiful, welcoming cockpit. Again, the upholstery, I love it. There's no wrinkles. There's no detail to it, but it's very nicely executed in a very, typical French minimalist manner. Beautiful teak table, really like that, and it's of a decent thickness. You've got your speakers, you've got your access to your helm. Moving into your saloon, you can see how wide open that entrance is. It actually is very nice. Now, the one thing that I don't really care for is their ceiling treatment in the saloon and on the cockpit. It's a tad unfinished. I know you got the indirect lighting, that's good, but you know me. The actual interior, though, aside from that, is extremely welcoming. Love the skylight, love the embedded pot lights, love the way they've done the kitchen galley area there, the TV inset. They've created something of a forward nav without wasting space in an area this size. I mean, again, this is a 42. I have to keep reminding myself that. And it's outstanding. You got a beautiful forward opening window for ventilation. Everything looks polished and finished. It's just elegant side of an RV, but it is the elegant side. So heading down into the hulls, here's your bow cabin on the port side. Again, it's a bow cabin, and you still have three-side access, at least 2/3 of the way up the berth. Beautiful wet head, very nicely executed. Lots of storage space you can see there. Moving into the aft cabin, huge space around it, nice nightstands, great ventilation on each side and above, a very bright and airy space. Beautiful head, dry head in this case, very nicely executed. I'd love to see a little teak on the floor of the shower, but that's me. Overall, an elegant, modernist version of a catamaran. Really nicely done. I would prefer to see a lot more rounded corners, but again, that's an aesthetic that's sort of mine. I love the saloon. I love the finishes. I love the couch and the comfort and the sense of comfort. I think it's so beautifully done, as is the cockpit. Now, heading up to the helm, you can see here that you've got great visibility. You've got a beautiful sun pad up there, and you've got a nice bimini over top with great visibility of your sails and of your mast there. All of your lines lead back. You've got your electric winches, and then you've got this really nice sun pad, which, you know, it's a 42-foot boat. That's all you really need. You have fantastic access to your boom and your lazy bag. Great area for additional solar on the cabin top, as well as behind the helm, and you could fly a panel off the back. So really comfortable helm, really safe helm. So I really like that armrest on the starboard side there. I think it gives you a sense of comfort. I do like the way the winch handling is separated from the helm. So if you have two folks, you can get a little help there. And if you don't, they're within easy reach. Lots of handholds. You're not going to get bounced out of this thing. It's just a real sense of comfort. They're moving up the side decks again. You've got those safety lines, or death lines as I like to call them. They're just the wrong height, and I don't understand using lines when ML uses solid rails. But great access in your forward storage area, and a really nice forward cockpit. I won't call it a faux cockpit because they really do have some leg area there. I drop a little flexi teak in the bottom to highlight that. The backs ratchet up or ratchet down, so you have nice sun pad area or a nice sundowner area. All of your flush mounted hatches are extremely nice. And your access, again, look at those rails, those handholds all the way back. Safety, a key concern here. Just absolutely love this tender lift. And I know there's varying opinions on it, but I think as an option, giving you additional space is outstanding. Now, a little navel gazing. So this week is really different. We're looking at the keel crab. It's a drone hull scrubber. And I tried to find alternative versions of this, or competitive versions, couldn't find any. This thing is, I don't really know how practical it is, but it's practical enough. They got it funded, they're building it, and they're building larger models of it too. So there's got to be some benefit here. It sucks onto the hull and scrubs its way around. You've got video. If nothing else, it's entertaining to scrub your hull. You got your little remote control here as it zips up along your hull, scrubbing off the growth. You can see it operating here, and you can see it actually works. You're going to have to go back and forth several times, but it is doing the job. There it is again, taking off that growth. So, again, I'd love to hear if anybody's used this. They're used by contractors in many cases, and by some private individuals. You just hose it off. There's your brushes. You can swap out the brushes as needed for a harsher scrub or a lighter scrub, but there you go. Another look down the side of the Astrea 42. Again, the profile is really attractive. I think they've done a great job on this. I'd be proud to drive away and look back at this. Looking at the pre-owned comparables now. Our first pre-owned comparable is the Bali 4.3. Let's bear in mind that the Sailaway FP Astrea is estimated at $700,500 USD. We just add 50% to the base. So at $700,500, you've got a new Astrea, or you've got a 2-year-old Bali 4.6 for about $500. $250,000 difference. The used one will probably have some toys on it, depending on what kind of condition it's in. Aside from the aesthetics, it would be hard to move to the FP just because of the sheer space, but I would be definitely tempted. I do like the interior, I like the exterior. I think they've got enough space for me on the FP. I'd probably take the hit. Our next vessel is the Seawind 1260. So again, our Sailaway FP is at $700,000. This 2-year-old Seawind 1260 at 41 feet is sitting at about $700,000. Sorry, I do the FP. Moving on to 2020 Lagoon 42. So again, a 2-year-old, you're looking at $659,000. You're going to have some additional toys on that versus $700,500 for the FP. I'd still do the FP. I prefer the FP. It's not that much more. I know I'm going to pay more for the add-ons that this owner's probably already put on, but I do the FP. Let's look at some mono hulls. Now again, I add 20% to the length for a mono hull to allow for equivalent square footage of usable space on board. So we're looking at a 2020 Hansa 508. This is a 51-foot mono hull. We're looking at $400,000 versus $700,000. Wow. I know there's the whole argument, and I would probably never get Sylvia onto a mono hull unless she completely surprises me because of the healing action. But if I was on a budget and still wanted to go around the world, I'd be hard pressed to say no to this. Moving on then to a Beneteau Oceanus 51-1. We're talking 2-year-old boat, $729,000 versus the Astrea at $700,000. Sorry, it'd be the Astrea all the way. Finally, we're looking at a Dufour 520, a 50-foot boat, $700,000 versus the Sail Away of the Astrea at $700,000. I'd do the Astrea because the benefits of the cat for what I'm doing and the ability to get Sylvia on board is just so much easier. Moving to the Dave score. The FP42 really only suffers because it's too small for what Sylvia and I want. And we know the Dave score is based on what will get Sylvia out on the water. Other than that, it's a tremendous vessel. So looking at the 42, we've got an interior elegance of 7. We've got an exterior elegance of 6. It's just restricted because of the size. You don't have a full upper cockpit or a really expansive forward cockpit, but it's still a very nice vessel. Comfort on the interior, solid 7. Exterior, solid 7. Those the upholstery and the way everything's laid out, very nice. Performance is a 6. I'd probably give it a 6.5 and take it above most of the other production yachts. Lazy Sailor, give it a 7. It's very nicely laid out. The Condo, give it a 6 only because of the size. And the Geek score, give it a 6. There's nothing really extraordinary or geeky, although come to think of it, it probably should go to a 7 given that it's got that hydraulic tender lift. And value for money, I'd give it a solid 7. This is a nice vessel, taking us to a total of 66, putting it just behind the Bally 4.6 by a hair. I mean, again, it's a smaller vessel. Behind the 4.6, yeah, and only by a hair. So really nice performance by FP on this unit. Moving to our Art of the Region this week, we are again looking at Albert Marquet, Posters at Treville, 1906. I love this guy. I didn't even realize that I picked the same artist from the Bordeaux region. In fact, I picked the same painting and had to go back and pick another one. Just love his post-impressionism. Around 1890, the French art student Albert Marquet, born in 1875 near Bordeaux, went to Paris to study at the famed École des Beaux-Arts. His roommate, major influence and good friend for the rest of their lives was Henri Matisse. Like many of the Fauvists, Marquet tended to prefer landscapes, occasionally intermixing with a few interiors, still lifes, nudes, and portraits. But it was the landscape that most fascinated him, especially port scenes, mostly in Marseille, in France, and Algiers in Africa. Despite his de-emphasis of Fauvism in his mature work, that's not to say his palette became pallid. In fact, he maintained total control, choosing his colors for various works from soft and natural to just short of garish. Today, his work can be found in the collections of major institutions, including the Art Institute of Chicago in Chicago, Illinois, the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Marquet died in northern France at the age of 71. And when I grow up and am rich, I will collect some of his art. Absolutely love it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this week. It's been a tremendous yacht from a fabulous manufacturer. Stay with us for next week's future yacht, which I think you'll really enjoy. We'll see you then. Cheers.